Welcome to APCUG's Saturday Safari, where we get together quarterly and we take an in-depth look at different topics. Today, we are having our annual beginning of the year roundtable. Lots of good discussions on lots of different topics of interest to your group, to your officers, and to your members. We hope you enjoy and share this video with your membership if they didn't attend. Today, Judy Tallur is going to be moderating our different topics that we're going to have. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn things over to her, and we'll see what she has.
Judy, you have to unmute.
I know.
And we request until it's your turn to talk, please have mics turned off so we don't have any extraneous noises. Thank you.
Okay, so this is our roundtable, and we're going to talk about how groups have morphed into different kinds of groups, communications, special interest groups, surveys, and publicity. And we're going to go in and out, and I'm going to share this every once in a while, and then I'm going to stop sharing, and we're going to have live people talk. And our first topic is new ideas for groups. You know, instead of disbanding your group because your officers have decided they have been the same officer for 16,000 years, they are so tired of doing that, and they just can't find, nobody will raise their hand and say, I'll do it. And they say disband. Well, there's other things that you can do. And the first person who's going to talk to us about that is John Mazur. So over to John.
Okay, thanks, Judy. Greetings from Pittsburgh, PA, where it is a balmy 17 degrees. It's not gonna last long. It's gonna be in the 40s tomorrow, so we're happy about that. Anyway, for those of you who don't know me, I was the president of the CP user group in Pittsburgh, and we were together for about 20 years, and 17 of those I've been the president. So as Judy mentioned a few minutes ago, a lot of us have held the same role for a gazillion years. Prior to that, I was in another user group for another 20 years and mostly in a leadership role for that one too. So anyway, a little timeline about our group. Pre-pandemic, we were at 55 members strong, and we were continuing to grow. And then the pandemic hit, and the first year we had only 39 people renewing. And at that point, we had made the decision to go to Zoom. So we were doing a virtual meeting with 39 paid members. Now, keep in mind, our average attendance via Zoom was about 10 to 12 people out of 39 paid. So I'm not sure what the other folks were doing or why they weren't getting on. We reached out to everybody and said, hey, if you need help with Zoom, we're here for you. We'll do a one-on-one to help you be comfortable with at least logging in, so you can at least, you know, listen and watch the meeting. So anyway, that was year one of the pandemic. And then year two, we dropped down to 21, still doing virtual. And again, attendance was even less at that point. We had probably about maybe 10 people logging in. And then in the second year, we got a few people that rejoined again. So we were back up to 25, but it didn't change the attendance part of it. We were still only getting maybe 10 or 12 people total. so just recently, within the last 9 months, the meeting place that we had for in-person meetings, we lost that space. It was a church hall, and that church closed, so we lost our meeting space. So at that time, we decided to disband the club and turn it into what we're calling a virtual SIG meeting only. So the last official meeting for our club was December of 2022, and this is sort of how the club went for me, at least personally. I was not feeling well. I was having some health issues, and I couldn't get anyone to run the meeting for me on our last official meeting as a club. Not even the officers that were still on record did not feel comfortable running the meeting. So we did not have a December meeting as our last official club meeting. At that point, we took down our website. We no longer have our website. We're looking into just maybe having a one-page splash page to announce meetings and upcoming events that we might be holding, but that hasn't happened yet. So anyway, the first official SIG was supposed to happen last month. And again, I was having some health issues, and again, no one to step up and run the meeting for me. So, so now our first official SIG will be February 21st. And as it stands, we've got enough money in the bank to hold Zoom meetings for probably another 2 or 3 years. And at that point, we're going to have to decide amongst the people that are attending, who wants to continue doing Zoom, and then we will have to collect, obviously, money from those folks to pay for the Zoom meetings throughout the year. We did renew our APCUG membership so that we can tap into the resources that they offer, especially the speaker bureau and so forth. So that we did want to continue that, because we want to be able to, from time to time, in the SIG meeting, we do want to maybe have a guest speaker come on that's part of the speaker bureau. So that's kind of where we stand right now. I really can't give you any feedback on how the SIG is going, because we haven't had one yet. So maybe next year at this time, when we hold this meeting, I can give you a little bit better information on how things are going from the virtual SIG standpoint. And so right now, that's where we're at. We're planning on holding a February 21st meeting. Hopefully my health will be okay. I'm feeling a lot better now, but you never know. It's life's kind of fragile with that as that goes. But anyway, so that's about all I have, Judy, and I'll be willing to, if anybody has any suggestions or have any comments regarding what I said, I'd be happy to listen.
Okay, hey, thank you, John. I'm sorry you were ill and it didn't work out the first time that you were going to do it. Ray Baxter's group in Payson, Arizona, they met at a library. He had to haul everything in, before COVID. And COVID comes along, that goes away. And now they can meet again in person, and they voted to become a Zoom only group. They have no dues and no officers. And he either gives a good presentation himself, or he relies on the Speakers Bureau to give a presentation. And there was a possibility that another group in Arizona would be disbanding. And so I mentioned that to him, and he said, I've got an idea. How about if I contact them and say, if you still want, to attend the Wednesday workshops, the Saturday safaris, every once in a while see a Speakers Bureau presentation. In other words, take advantage of APCUG's benefits. you can join our group in Payson. They're, a half hour, 45 minutes up the hill, so to speak, from Phoenix. And he said, I'm going to float that. And he said, I think that's a really good way to keep, the people who don't want to be officers. Nobody in my group wants to be an officer. So he did. And I think that's one way of doing it. The group has not closed, but if it eventually does, there are people who've expressed that they would be interested in attending Ray's group and keeping up with the tech world and things like this. So that is a different kind of option instead of just completely shutting down. No officers, no dues, no nothing. We had a group in New York, and they meet at the library. They use all the library facilities, their Zoom, the room, and they've never, ever had dues. And he said he was familiar with APCUG through another New York group. And he said, I asked the people, if we join this organization, will everybody donate, put something into the cup for the $50 annual dues? And they all said, absolutely, yes, they will. And so that's the way they took care of keeping, and joining the organization and taking use of the benefits. And I thought that was unique. Not many groups can do that. I'm going to share my screen with a couple of other groups and what they're doing. In Florida, the Sarasota Technology User Group, STUG, merged with the Venice Tech Users Group last spring of 2022. They're 18 miles apart on the West Coast, and Venice shared their membership list with Sarasota, their treasury. All the Venice people got 3 months free membership to check Sarasota out. And they're, like I said, they're 18 miles apart. And then we'll talk about a survey that Sarasota did later on in the presentation. And they turned into an all Zoom meeting. So it would have been a short drive to attend the meeting, or they can do it from the comfort of their home. But again, they gave them 3 months free membership so they could check it out and see if they wanted to join. In the Milwaukee, Wisconsin area, we have the Southeastern Wisconsin Windows User Group. They only have online meetings. I was there this last week. 18 miles away to the Milwaukee Home User Group, who only has in-person meetings. The members of each group can go to whichever meeting they want to. I don't imagine they want to drive 18 miles in the snow, but when the weather's better, I imagine that would work beautifully. So does anybody have any other ideas on what you could do instead of disbanding your group? John Fair.
Yes, John Mazur. We're 2 hours north of you in Erie, Pennsylvania. Right now, we're a couple degrees warmer than you, actually. But you have joined us in the past for a couple of meetings, and I wanted to extend an invitation to you and any of your members to join us. And we will not charge you any dues for the first 6 months. And if you decide that you want to continue, we are currently a total Zoom group. And you are welcome to, after 6 months, you decide it's a good thing, join our club.
That sounds good, John. Thanks for the invite. And I will, I'll run that by the remaining members of our organization. And if we decide to do that, I'll reach out to you to get information on your Zoom meetings.
I have my user groups that members of user groups can attend meetings of other APC user groups. And I didn't have this on my list, shame on me. Bill James group in Oklahoma. For $10, you can become an associate member of their group, and they have hybrid meetings. And so with that group, you can attend 4 or 5 meetings a month on Thursday mornings, get a copy of their e-bulletin every week, and life can go on for you. Drew King, you're on.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm also a member of 2 groups, one here in Sarasota and primarily one in Boston. And the Boston group is going through a similar kind of problem. Many, many years ago, it's been around for decades, and started off as a professional organization. And back in the day when a networking technology called Novell was very popular. And the group was originally named the Boston Novell User Group. And we partnered with business partners of Novell and brought in vendors to do presentations. And so meetings were very large. There was always a vendor that came in and paid for dinner. And it was a very active group. And now that that model doesn't seem to work anymore, the group is sputtering to survive. Meeting attendance is down to a dismal dribble of maybe 10 or 15 people now. And I'm just here, part of being here today is to learn for some ideas on how to rejuvenate the group and keep it from going extinct.
Thank you. Jerry Crow.
Good morning. I guess I'll go ahead and start my video.
Ooh.
My face is a mess. I went to the dermatologist 3 days ago, and so this is liquid nitrogen sprayed on my face.
I spent one
everybody,
Christmas like that.
go ahead. Everybody knows about that. Okay. And in Phoenix, Arizona, that's essential to life to do that, to get checked for that every year because of the sun. But anyway, yeah, you know, I attend Ray's meetings. You were talking about Ray and Baxter. I'm a member of the Phoenix PC user group, but it's so, I think part of the problem is that Zoom has made meetings more convenient, but I have to say 8 years ago, the Phoenix group would have 3 meetings in the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of the 3rd week of the month, and on the east side of town, in the middle, and on the west side. And, you know, we'd get 25, 30, 40 people at each one of those meetings. And now David Yamamoto, who's the president of the group, and I and 4 or 5 other people get together on Zoom about once a month. That's it, you know. So I don't know. Part of the answer, I think, folks, is that, you know, you don't need a user group to know how to use a telephone, at least not anything short of a super smartphone. That's always been my thing. I mean, they're just part of life now. So maybe that's part of the problem. In the beginning, of course, people came to user groups because they weren't sure about how to use this new thing called a personal computer, you know. So anyway, enough. But yeah, I like Ray's meetings. I attend them. They're very good, and he's a good host. So yeah.
Thank you. Well, back in the day when the internet came upon us, they said, you know, it was our demise. Well, we're still trucking right along, internet and all. Alan Solomon is going to tell you how he became the president of a merged group. Surprise, surprise.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much. I'm Alan Solomon, president of what's now called Leisure World Tech. The Apple Club of Leisure World is an 8,000 person, 55 plus community, which means we're virtually all retired and have time to do this. There was a very active club called the Apple Club for many years, and they had a membership of well over 100 just in our community. Same situation as many of you are seeing. The existing board and officers could not find their own replacements, could not take the workload, but to our benefit, they warned us of it. We had some looser affiliation for a few years. They warned us that they were doing that. And because they had such an active program of really excellent programs, most of them obviously oriented toward Apple, we said we would like to continue them. So what we are doing is beginning to work with APCUG. We don't yet have a new program manager besides Jerry Berman, for which I apologize to him because it's a terrible workload. We will do that. We've also, because we're a community that had to shut down almost completely, so anyone who's technologically competent to the lowest degree is using Zoom. So Zoom is available. We went out and bought for our association our own mobile television stand to do Zoom broadcast to a hybrid audience. That's beginning to work and work well. And now what we have to do is plan a program, because like everyone else, most of our residents have to unlearn what they learned working in the 90s and aughts about what you shouldn't do with a computer, and how and we still have those foibles of I'll break it, somebody will come along and grab me by the shoulder and kick me off the network, et cetera, et cetera. Remember, it's Washington, D.C. area, so we are government workers, and the strictures were significant. At any rate, so we are in the middle of transition, and it does look good coming out the other end. Honestly, APCUG allows us, because we have the space already, to work extremely frugally, and hopefully with program manager develop programs that will be of interest to our residents.
Thank you. And it was nice of Jerry. I asked him to please promise me that he would stay on as program chair for a while. And he has let me know that he is scheduling his last meeting, and that will be in March. And he does have, you guys have somebody else who is going to take his place. And many of their members have already attended our Wednesday workshops, which is good to see. Okay. We have one more comment from someone who's going to need to rename himself.
I'm Conrad Supchak. I'm with the Computer Users of Erie, and you just heard from John Fair. John was a former president. He is also our current treasurer and membership director. We also, I see that Sue Muller, one of the presenters of for APCUG, which is genealogy, is also one of our members. So we have a very, well, it's a small group. I wanted to mention just one thing that we've done. Members come and go, but just to give you an idea, we always have a annual picnic. So we hold it now at it's Prescott State Park, and it's it's well attended. We just have a good time. It's a good get together. There's no presentations. It's a potluck. Everybody gets together, and we got a good crew that actually coordinates things, knows how to cook. Secondly, we also have a Christmas holiday, gathering in December. And again, there's not a great turnout. Maybe if we had 25, 30 people, out of 75, that's pretty good. And again, we have people drop off and new attendees, and we just seem to have a good time. As a matter of fact, what we're going to do in April is we're going to have a meeting. Well, no, we're going to have a gathering. It's going to be in the evening, and it's going to be kind of like potluck. I think, if we get enough people there, maybe I'll hold a meeting, and I'll limit everybody to about like 2 minutes talk, so we can just have a good time. So we've gone with a little bit of transition. And, one thing I'd certainly like to, mention and thank the APCUG speakers, because as I'm looking at the list, just in the last year, we've had 5, probably maybe 6, who have done monthly presentations for us. And we do primarily Zoom. I can see us, for any number of reasons, weather and in the wintertime. Zoom is working out pretty good. The way I see it, we're technology group. And, I've been banished to the basement with the computer stuff, so hey, just to be able to go from first floor to the basement and have a meeting, I'm okay with that. So
Cool, thanks, Conrad. And I attended one of their meetings, and John Fair, who must be the treasurer or membership chair or both, gave a report on how many were up for renewal and how many he had heard from. And apparently they reached out and said, if you haven't rejoined, why? And he had a few responses on why members hadn't renewed. So that is an idea for your membership, is when you don't hear back from people, you give them a call, or you reach out and say, if you're not renewing, please let us know what we can do better. Take the high road and say, what would interest you to come back, and things like this. Jerry, you're on. Unmute yourself, please.
Thank you. Jerry Deal from Viewpoint RV Resort in East Mesa, Arizona. Prior to the pandemic, we had somewhere around 115 to 120 members. Pandemic obviously affected everybody, and it affected us. We're back now to having meetings at least 2 times a week. We're up to, I think, 63 members now, so we're coming back. But what we're faced with now is that we've added about 350 homes in our park, and the park has not added any facilities. We're lucky enough to have 2 nice computer rooms, one a lab and one a classroom, and one big meeting space basically for everybody in the park for everything else. And we're getting squeezed out of that. So we're trying to squeeze our members now into these 2 small rooms. And so we're really happy with APCUG, because we've used some of those items. We also have an association called the East Valley Association of Computer Clubs, and it looks like we're going to go to Zoom meetings with those. Normally they're shared around in the East Valley, but at this point, it seems as though we're, at least in our park, our membership is coming back. One last item, the people moving into our park are probably 40% of them, which is a guess, are still working. And so therefore they're working remotely. They know about computers, and so there's not as much interest from those people of joining a club, because many of those know much more than what we know. So that's what I have at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. That's what I hear from the large homeowners group in SoCal. The 55 plus people that are retiring say been there, done that, been working all these years using computers, and no reason for me to join a tech club because I'm happy with what I've got, and so on and so forth. Paul Howard.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Paul Howard. I'm president of the Potomac Area Technology and Computer Society, and also treasurer of the OLLI PC user group that's based in the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute at George Mason University. Our groups have been meeting together since 2009. The Pat Aces organization dates back, May will be its 45th anniversary. Pat Aces has 85 dues paid members right now. APCUG has about 75, and APCUG is as I mentioned, was part of OLLI, which has about 1,000 members. Listening to folks this morning, I'd like to recommend that you investigate whether there's an Osher Lifelong Learning Institute associated with a college or university near you. There are 125 of them across the United States. It's generally an organization for people interested in lifelong learning that are 50 or 55 plus years old. So it may present the opportunity to find some new members, do some joint programming, establish a club or join part of a club that's associated with one of those organizations. We've been very fortunate in that our association with Ollie gives us a meeting space when we have our Saturday meetings that'll accommodate right now 85 people because of the things that we've done to change the rooms in preparation for hybrid classes for Ollie. And some of our people, one of whom I see sitting here today, John Kraut and Mel Mikosinski, did the engineering to make sure that we could do hybrid classes at Ollie. In fact, Pat Aces has been using Zoom since about 2013 in association with some of these joint meetings. I don't have any great ways of picking up members. We've been struggling for years, but we've somehow managed to keep our membership near 100 for quite a while. We are very fortunate that we've got a fair amount of money in the bank. So even if everybody stopped paying for dues, we could keep the organization going, doing what we're doing now for 4 or 5 years. Thanks to Judy's efforts and everybody else that's here that produces a newsletter, we are still able to publish a print newsletter 8 times a year. We've been doing that since our second meeting in June of 1978. So we're very, very proud of the fact that we've been able to do that. We've got a enthusiastic editor that's grabbing articles from a variety of places, and we very much appreciate what all the rest of you folks are doing, particularly my colleague, John Kraut, who has been writing lots of articles, and a bunch of you have invited him to speak at your presentations. And of course, he's done a ton of those for us. So I just want to say I appreciate being a part of the APCUG organization. I was very, very pleased to have the opportunity in 2012 to go on a cruise with the Florida group. I've forgotten what the overall umbrella name is, but I got to meet Judy and Huey and John and a whole bunch of other people at on that cruise. And so I feel like even though we don't get to see anybody anymore except via this, it was a great way to become a part of the organization. Thanks very much.
Thanks. And Joe Lynn is going to be the last speaker on this topic. Bob G., you're on. Unmute, kiddo.
Good morning. As most of you know, I'm a presenter, and I've been to many of the clubs. Fortunately, it used to be in person, but now it's primarily via Zoom. For those of you who think that just because you know about computers, you really don't need any presentations or there's nothing interesting. Those of us that know about computers learn every day that there are many dangers that face us when we use modern technology. So there's always something that we can learn. So when somebody says, oh, well, they're new people, they're young people, they really don't need a computer club, I beg to differ.
And again, there are a gazillion seniors out there who are susceptible to ID theft and all kinds of security problems. And we need to keep looking for those people and entice them in to make them much more aware of their environment and how they, don't turn into money mules and things like this. And Bob G. has his new 2023. I'm out there, banging my drum about it. And if you must have his presentation. I will just, if you can have a good time and laugh during a security presentation, that doesn't happen often, and you get to do that through Bob's presentations, and you go, isn't this supposed to be a serious subject? And those of us who think, oh gosh, there's nothing new in the world, as I always say, when Bob would come to my meeting, he'd turn over and look at me at my table and go like, gotcha, Judy, you just learned something new, didn't you? And I'd smile and say, yeah, darn it. So do book him, and you can get in touch with him. You can come through the Speakers Bureau. And remember, October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Perfect time to have a Bob G presentation so you can advertise it to your community. This is what we're doing to celebrate this season and attend this, important security presentation. Over to John Kraut.
Had to go find my keyboard so I could unmute. I was listening to the fellow who discussed the 50 new move-ins in his community and how they were all people who were still working for a living and they felt they had all the computer skills that they need.
Mm-hmm.
I am not going to talk about new security concerns, but I do want to mention that there are an abundance of new and interesting uses. Another comment. I too live in the Washington area. I worked on site for federal government agencies. And so I know that largely what I was allowed to do was use email, use the web for the normal research purposes that I would have to be tasked to pursue, and very little else. But being retired now, what I've been able to do is enjoy all the things that my employer would have absolutely frowned on. And that includes things like streaming audio, adding ringtones to my smartphone, learning how to make a smartphone resist robocalls. If you look at my Speakers Bureau subject matter list, you'll see almost 50 different topics. Something as simple as how to find your lost smartphone. So what I want to suggest to you, if you run into that kind of resistance from prospective members, show them a list of all the presentations that have been done for your group members in the last couple of years, all these creative things that nobody in the federal government ever would allow. And also how to understand your equipment better than they allowed you to understand it. Simple things like understanding what a router does and why you need to pay attention to that. So that's my soapbox stand, and I'm done.
Thank you. I would have men come to my adult ed tech class that I taught for over 20 years. And they had just retired, thought they knew everything about computers. And they would, without hesitation, say, my wife told me I had to take your class. It's like not trying to show a family member how to drive or teach them how to drive. And he said, I thought I knew it all. Well, he didn't realize he was using a dumb terminal, or his admin was really doing everything for him. But by golly, he had retired and he had a computer in his office. So that is very viable for some of these people. And my suggestion is you have a list on your website of past meetings, title, the subject, who gave it, so people can look and say, oh, look at what they had. Oh, I wish I had been able to go to that. My other suggestion is every single year in January, and this comes from the Fredericksburg group in Maryland, is have a presentation, a running one when people are coming up, a looping one that reviews the year. And somebody who only comes here and then comes 3 months later can look at all the presentations they missed And again, think, hey, I better get my act together and start attending meetings because they're offering a lot of good stuff and I'm missing out. You refresh everybody's knowledge of the SIGs that are going on, and it just loops. And that's PR for your existing members who need to wake up and smell the roses and get their act together and get into the computer club meetings. Jolynn.
There we go. Okay. We apparently, the Hilton Head On Computer Club is apparently rather unique in that, well, we started in 1989. I joined in 1991, have been everything from membership director, except for treasurer, I've done pretty much everything. It is an amazing experience. We've got 40 volunteers. We have a resource center. That has been the most valuable. So we have volunteers that are there Monday through Friday from 10 to 4. We take 3-hour shifts, and then the other shift comes in. We do both Apple and Windows on duty. Most shifts will have somebody with Android or Chromebook or other. We also cover things like streaming, security, home network setups, that kind of thing. When on March 15th of 2020, I learned about Zoom. On March 16th, of course, we all shut down. I knew that Zoom was the way to keep our computer club going. We did a series of 13 episodes of using Windows 10 that summer. We reopened in October minimally to the Resource Center, so people can call, walk in. We can do remote support. It's just the most amazingly joyful experience to have been able to work with this organization for all these years. During COVID and the lockdown, we went down to about 825 members. We're now over 1,030 members again. So we have a unique situation because a lot of people come to visit Hilton Head and stay for a couple of months. They will join the club. They still have access to our help from anywhere in the world. I've helped people in Canada, in France, and all over the US. We recently have been pushing more PR. One of our members goes to senior living facilities and other organizations on the island to just a brief talk about the club and what we do and how we offer what we offer. We've done mostly Zoom presentations. We record them. The videos are posted. The slide presentation, whatever the presentation is, the PDFs are posted on our website. So people can go back, whoever misses something, they can go back and review either the slides or PDF format or the videos. The other thing we've begun doing just recently is we are inside of our local senior center, which has a nice meeting room where they do their events, and we have Mondays there. We've started inviting small groups, a women's organization or a church organization or a men's group to come in. There's a kitchen, they can bring food and serve refreshments, and we give them a spiel about the club. So expanding our reach into the community, not so much by PR and advertising, but individual human being reaching out. And again, we are so lucky for the volunteers. Our volunteer coordinator is amazing. We have an Apple luncheon every month. We have a Windows luncheon every month, so the volunteers can meet each other and kind of get to know each other. We're getting ready to have our volunteer appreciation annual meeting at the end of February. So we have been so lucky to have amazing human resources to share with the community and to grow with the community. And if it's tech, we cover it. So I am thankful to be a part of it. We've also been a member of APCUG since the mid-90s at least. So very thankful for what we've been able to use and utilize and learn from the APCUG. Thank you.
And she just gave you some of my tips too, which is way cool. I always like it when we have like minds. And somebody saw my living presentation about death at your meeting and got in touch and said, we'd like that. So we're joining. And so they joined APCUG. I thought that was cool. That's the second time that's happened. And
That's terrific.
that's always wonderful. So I thank you for that. Okay, it's my turn. Okay, do you communicate with your members? The Westchester PC Users Group, and I'll talk about them later under surveys, have done a complete redo since January of 2022. It took them about 10 months to do it. They are now Tech Ed Connect, and their president, with help of a couple of members, sends out a weekly update. You know, in your email box, you will get information about all the meetings and SIGs for that week. Easy to do. You've got the information, and it's boilerplate stuff. You've got the format, you copy and paste, you put it in, send it out, and boom, it's done. But again, you're preaching to your current members, reminding them of all of the stuff that is going on. And if they have one SIG, they probably have 10. And they are strictly a Zoom group at this point in time. Central Kentucky Computer Society, the same thing. They have a weekly bulletin, and you click on the little person with the heart there, and you get the newsletter. You click on meetings, you get the calendar with the meetings. You click on the classes link, and you get a link to their calendar with everything that is offered for the entire month. But again, it comes out every week, and he, the guy who puts it together, adds our APCUG Wednesday workshops and Saturday safaris if they happen to fit in the particular time. Sarasota, I'll be speaking about them a lot because they're a cool group. They have on their website trending this week, and that comes out all the time to the people on their email list. I'm on their email list, and it's click-throughs to interesting articles. AI is so in everybody's face these days, so that's the first article on trending this week. They again send out the bulletins about their meetings, their classes, their forums, whatever. And you think, oh my gosh, that's so much work. Once you set it up, you've got the blurb, you change the dates, and you know, it's copy and paste and boom, you add a new topic if the SIG leader or forum leader or class person has told you about it. And they send them out via MailChimp or one of the other services. Bill James Computer Club of Oklahoma City, he does this every single week. You call him on a Sunday, and he is working on this. And he does the same thing. He includes links to articles in his e-bulletin. So it's kind of a combined newsletter and e-bulletin. And again, he adds, you know, APCUG stuff to his weekly bulletin in case, you know, something is happening in that week. And again, they meet every Thursday. Victoria Computer Club. Each week I get a list, dear Judy, hello Judy, and it says this is what we're doing this week here. Click here and you can click on the slides and look at the ones of the dealing with spam, avoiding scams, that meeting that we had, and it clicks through to their calendar so you can see exactly what is happening on for quite a few days. Senior Computer Users Group of Kansas City. They have a lunch and learn, and that was on January 27. And then their Android SIG, oh my, that's Bob Bowser's thing. And the weather seems like it's going to be really crummy. So, you know, we're just going to have it online. And that one was sent out. And there's our potpourri of Google Photos information. If nothing else, send an email. And what you're doing is you're keeping in touch with these people. You are reminding them, hey, you guys belong to a tech club. You know, come on down either in person or join us via Zoom. And Craig Wright, and I love Director of Electronic Communication out of the Columbus Computer Society. In your inbox every week, you know exactly what is going on. You get the link, you get the ID, the passcode, the voice, and he uses hot colors to draw your attention to everything. So you don't need to be fancy. You can just do a email. And I got this from JJ's group, and it's, again, just keeping in touch. And this is a link to a reviewgeek.com, which is part of How To Geek. And it's all the stuff that's important that's happened in February. How easy is this if you get access to something like this, to send it out to your members? Maybe they'll have time to read it. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll say, gee, I'm really tired of getting this stuff, but I hope that's not their, their reaction. But again, you're keeping in touch. You're, keeping the computer club in front of their eyeballs, in their memories. Oh yeah, I have to remember. I do really learn a lot of stuff about this. I need to re-engage. I think our lack of members and attendees with Zoom is we have a lot of senior people out there who think they might make a fool of themselves. They do not know how to use Zoom. They think it is difficult. They don't realize that really you just have to click on a link, and once you set it, you're done. You're setting up your mics and things. And people have done training. John and I did a great deal of training in 2020 when this all happened. And so every once in a while, you need to check with the people who aren't attending and say, can you let me know why you're not coming to meetings, and have a checkbox so they don't have to write it out. They can just say, don't know how to use Zoom. Well, that box is checked. Oh, then get in touch with them and, see what you can do to bring them along using Zoom, because it doesn't bite. APCUG has been using it since 2012, and people are afraid of new things. And Zoom was new, when all this COVID stuff started, and it's still new to some people. So we're on to special interest groups. Sarasota again, I attend the help desk with Jim Searney, and I love it. It's an hour and 15 minutes once a month. And he asked, do you have a technical related problem or question? Then join us at the help desk. And what they do, they go, and normally we would go around the room. He goes around the screen. There's one question per person. Everybody gets a chance to ask the question. Everybody gets a chance to answer the question. And you'd be surprised how people have different ways of doing the exact same thing. And after that, if everybody has their turn with one question, and then he'll say, we still have time. Does anybody have another question? And at the last meeting I attended, this lady said, oh, I have so many questions, and I forgot all of them. So my suggestion was during the month, she should create a document, and every time she thought of something, open it up, or even keep it open and type what her questions are. Back in the day when we had the Temecula Computer Club, they had what they called a short-term SIG. They had regular SIGs that went on and on and on forever, but people at a meeting one time said, I'd like to learn about fill in the blank. Several other people raised their hands and said, we would too. Someone said, why don't we have a short-term SIG? They got their topic. They decided how they wanted to learn the subject, online, in person. Back then it was in person. And the SIG ends when everybody has learned what they wanted to know. And it might last 4 weeks. It might last 6 months. It might last 3 sessions. Who knows? But it's up to them. There's no management of it by the club. They just they could go down to Denny's and sit around a booth and talk, something like that. And I remembered back in the day reading the Lorain County Computer Users Group in Ohio's newsletter, and they had what Temecula called a short-term SIG, and it was about some kind of digital. And they got together at where they met, and the president said, I went last week and nobody was there. I guess we've all learned what we wanted to know. And I thought that was so clever and so cute. But that short-term SIG had served everybody just fine. So I am going to stop sharing and ask Richard Durand if he will please talk about WAC's investment SIG. Not everybody has.
Can you hear me?
Yes, fine. Perfect.
All right. I got to keep holding down the space bar or I'll.
If you raise your hand, you'll go to the top of everybody's screen.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yep. Reaction. There you go. Okay.
All right. Well, our investment SIG has been meeting since the 20th century. We're kind of a small group within a group, so we usually have 2 to 6 members of our computer club that show up, and we've been on the 4th Wednesday of every month for decades. And we meet in the evening at 7 to 9 or so. And for a long time, it was just in person. And then COVID came along and we switched to Zoom. And then after a year and a half or 2 years or something, there was a demand for, hey, let's have in-person meetings again. So we've started doing that, but we still have to have a hybrid in case somebody wants to join us on Zoom from out of state, or they just don't want to drive across town or something. Personally, I like the Zoom because it gets to be a chore to haul everything there and set it up and tear it down again and haul it back. But finding a parking place and going across town and all that. But some people like to meet in person, so that's what we do.
And what do you do at your investment SIG?
We have just, well, I'm getting to that. It's very informal. We talk about the markets, and we have several free websites that we use a lot that we look up securities on, stocks on. One is FinViz and one is Bar Chart Opinion. And we've just started using this another resource that's free, Investopedia, which has paper trading. And with paper trading, we get a free account with 100 grand of play money, and we can trade on this free account. And we typically trade 100 shares of whatever anybody wants to trade. And so far, we've had, well, to begin with, we had most of them were losing money. Now we've got more positives than good. But that anyone could do this. You know, if you're in a club and you want to have an investment SIG, or you want to just do it on your own, you can go to Investopedia stock simulator and you can trade. I should say that thanks to our attendees, we have found a new location, and we're meeting here for this year. It's at a local library. It's a room. And not only do we have some privacy and the internet signal, but that room has a 3-foot by 4-foot flat screen hanging on the wall with a HDMI cable that I can just connect the computer to, and it's wonderful. Everybody can see the screen. So that's what we do.
Outstanding. Could you put the 3 entities that you deal with in the chat box, please?
Sure, I can do that.
Thank you so much. And we're on to Bill James, who's going to talk about his tips and tricks SIG. They're called SIGs, study groups, work groups, all kinds of things.
Hi all, thank you. Our tips and tricks groups meets once a month on Thursdays. And basically it is just tips on how for different things you can use your computer with, and things that I found. Normally what I do, I will go out and find a dozen or so topics, and I'll create a handout and I will publish that in our weekly bulletin. People can download, they can follow along the handout, and I'm also will demonstrate things that is in that document, and then we will discuss it. If there's questions, people will ask, and it just requires that you have someone that is interested to dig out all this information and then put it into a document, or make a program, basically. And it's lasts for about an hour and 30 minutes. And it's quite popular. We have a good turnout, both in person and on Zoom. Our club is hybrid, so we have our weekly meetings or on Zoom as well as in person now. And like Hilton Head, we have a resource center that we use for our meetings. We have a big screen that is hooked up to a computer, hooked up to a projector that will show on a large wall. So I can share my screen and I can see what we're doing as well as the people on Zoom. So it works out really quite well. But then again, it takes someone to come up with the topics each month. And that would be me in this case. Matter of fact, this second Thursday is our tips and tricks meeting. And so I'm in the process now of gathering all my materials that I will demonstrate, and we'll have a discussion on.
Can you quickly tell us where you gather your material?
Well, How to Geek is a good resource. There's and of course I use Google a lot, and I'll just think of something and it says, how do you do this? And usually I'll find materials that I can use, and I take that as the springboard for my discussion. Cool. But I was amazed, like I think John and some other, and Bob said that there are people out there that that know everything. And I worked in IT for a long time, and even to this day, I'm always learning new things because technology changes. That's one thing that really is important to your group to keep them interested, is you have to sort of nourish them. You don't want to overwhelm them, because that will also send them away, but you want to keep their minds occupied and, being wanting to learn stuff. And I find that, I'm almost 78 years old, and I still feel I have a lot to learn. And I just really enjoy digging out and finding out what I can learn. So the tips and tricks is as much as for me as for my audience. Mm-hmm. And I just let my imagination take hold. And I said, now I'm kind of interested in this. Why can't my computer do this? Or why am I having trouble with this particular issue? And I'll just go out and research. It's one case in point is that in Windows 2011, the 22H2 update was supposed to give you an additional feature on your taskbar where you could access the task monitor. And for some odd reason, that one, even though I got the update, it didn't happen for me. So on one computer that it worked, on the other one it did not. So I went in and did a little research and found out, I mean, this is a no-no for a lot of people, but there's a registry hack that you have to do to make that happen. For some reason, it didn't, the update didn't apply properly. So I went in and fixed it by doing that. And now that my task manager shows up on my taskbar when I right click. In addition to when you right click, you have the taskbar settings, but also task manager was supposed to show up as well, but with the 22H2. So that was one of the things that I do, and it's just my curiosity. But I think you need to find someone in that position to that has that type of curiosity to have really significant programs or programs that are important to everyone.
I try to learn something new every single day. And the other day I learned 3 new things and I was so excited it was pathetic. So thank you so much, Mr. James. And you think about it, you could have somebody do Windows tips and tricks one time. You could have another person do a different kind of tips and tricks. They also have Android and iPhone tips and tricks. So your imagination could take you along, so you didn't have somebody having to do the exact same thing every month. Spread the work around, like having more than one program chair. Huey, you're on, and then John, and then it's going to be over to Ray Baxter. So Huey.
There's a couple of things. I am a member of 2 groups, the Sarasota group and the Central Florida group in Orlando. And I've been a member of the Orlando group since 1987, have been doing a Windows special interest group on Sundays once a month, probably for 25 years or more. And we didn't have a Windows group in the Sarasota group. So I asked both boards and got permission, and I merged the SIG as a now CFCS and STUG Windows SIG. And I get quite a few members from both groups. And then I open it to everybody as well. All of you were invited. Any Sunday, all you have to do is register. But I've been doing it, and all I do is I put together a list of a bunch of articles that I found in the last month about Windows, and we go through them. It's not a lot of hard work. It's just time involved in putting it together. The other thing is I've just started in the Sarasota group. Sarasota has some open SIGs or forums and some that are for members only. And I decided to make sure that the members only had sufficient information to try to get people to join the group. And so I started a tips group as well, or tips forum, but I'm doing it a little bit differently. I'm not recording it, so you can't watch it again. But the reason I'm not recording it is I'm going out to YouTube and I'm finding anything from 3-minute to 10-minute videos on all kinds of topics. And I'll play the 3 or 10 up to 10-minute video, and then we'll discuss the information in it. Then we'll go to the next item. And I try to choose 2 or 3 items. And our first meeting was in January. We had, I think it was about 15 people, and it was a good discussion group. Everybody got involved in it. And I'm having it on I believe it's the 4th Tuesday of every month now. And I've already picked the topics for this month. And they're not usually, or not only Windows or Apple or phones. I'm talking about TV. I'm going to be showing some different videos on other topics that are on YouTube that that involve our members, that may not be totally technical, but because YouTube has so much information out there and it can be discussed.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that, because those are all real cool things. And I love watching people nodding their heads and like, oh, that sounds like a very good idea. And then you can see they're bent over it because they're writing things down. John Kraut.
Yeah, I had an interesting just little flag pop up in my brain when I was listening to Mr. James. I think the very first time that he and I were on a presentation that I was doing on QR codes, I taught people how to use their cell phone cameras to scan QR codes. And Bill had just gotten a Galaxy S20, and he said right during the meeting that it didn't scan the QR code that I gave as a practice thing. This is one of the things that I enjoy as a developer of educational materials, is watching the audience, listening to their questions, and then evolving my presentation to address those things. Bill, I eventually found out where the switches were that turn that capability on and off in Android phones. And I also researched how far back those switches were actually built in. In other words, when did they introduce the capability? I have no idea why anybody's phone would have that switch turned off, but Bill taught me that is possible. He did so by asking that question that day. So now that presentation also includes how to make sure your phone is properly configured. And if you have an older OS, I show you the app you can install to do the same thing, scan QR code. So Bill, I just wanted to say, for me, that's been a blast, that business of researching what people have asked me. And I really appreciate it. That's all.
And don't forget to tell your members when you are giving a presentation or somebody else is giving a presentation, they might want to think about working right along with them. When the geeks were with us last month, John Kennedy had his phone, moderator schmoderator. He had his phone out there and he was working right along with them and learning here, here, and here how to do something. And that's very important, that you encourage your members, instead of just sitting like this, that they work along and, you know, they learn so much more and so much easier. Ray Baxter, you are.
I was going to say, Judy, I was going to say one thing. John, I was an early adopter of smartphones. In fact, I did a presentation many years ago calling a smartphone the Swiss Army knife of gadgets. And your presentation taught me so much from just listening to you. Every time you talk about smartphones, I always learn something. So thank you.
Mr. Baxter, take it away.
Okay. Thank you very much, Judy. I just want to take a few minutes here to give you a little history of the computer club that I operate in Payson, Arizona. Where is Payson, Arizona? Well, it's in the central part of the state, halfway between Phoenix and Flagstaff. And this computer club had been around from I'd say the 1993, early 90s. This is at a time when it was Windows 3.1 and then Windows 95, the Apple equivalents. In those days, it was more difficult to understand the operating systems than it is today. So the computer club flourished. And over the next 2 decades, the club continued with its offices. We had a president, a vice president, treasurer, secretary, probably similar to so many other clubs. And we met monthly at the local library in Payson, which actually was free for us. So we didn't have to have that expense. So that was great. And for about 2 years, we actually did a second monthly meeting at a member's home, where we actually brought in hardware and disassembled it and found out different issues. So it was really a very active club in those days. Dues were $15 a year, not too much. And each month we'd have a guest speaker, either someone locally, someone from the club, or sometimes it was someone out of town. Okay, changes take place. Now, I moved to Arizona in 2004. From California. I became aware of APCUG and I joined them. And over time, I became the treasurer and then the vice president. And then all of a sudden, the vice president. Mind you, I didn't run for these offices. They just kind of were thrust upon me. But that was fine. But in 2015, when I was president, the other officers came to me and said, Ray, we're stepping down. Now, nobody was mad at each other. Nobody was upset. But they all had things in their life that were now taking priority, and they wanted to do those. And even though the club had quite a few members, nobody wanted to step up into any of these roles. On the soon to become vacant roles. So while it seemed to be going out of business, our club, we still had money in the bank. and we still had the ability to meet at the library. So I decided to slightly change our setup, and I made us into what I call a meetup club. So with a meetup club, there were no more offices. There were no more dues to be paid. Instead of having members, we had attendees, and the attendees would meet at the library. And each month, this was the concept, there would be a leader. I would be the first leader, but each month there would be a different leader that would take over and have the responsibility for running the meeting, for coming up with the topics to talk about. And that, in my mind, was going to work out great. Well, guess what? The leader concept never materialized. I had to do most of the work every month, but you know what? The club still stayed intact. So I was happy to do that. Then COVID-19 changes everything. So the community room where we met at the Payson Library, that closed up. So I changed it to Zoom sessions. And I always start about 20 minutes early to give what I call the camaraderie time, or the social time, where the members who really like talking to each other still have that opportunity to do so. And then we start our meeting 20 minutes later. For reasons never explained to me, several of our members chose not to stop attending. And I think, and this was mentioned before, that they assumed Zoom would be too difficult to learn and they didn't want to feel embarrassed. But our monthly meetings continued, but the number of attendees fluctuated. And sometimes I only had 3 people who were attending, and meanwhile I invited a guest speaker. So I felt embarrassed with that and not being able to do something better. So if you look at the website for APCUG, you can see a page that lists all the member clubs by time zone. And they've opened up their Zoom meetings to others. Some require dues to be paid, others are free to attend. So I put the Payson Club in there, listed us, and I can tell you every month I have people from out of state as well as from Arizona attend our meetings. Now, several, I'm happy to say, are from the Phoenix PC user group, and one of their members has actually made a presentation to our club. So that takes the load off me. So I'm trying to encourage more and more of that. So this is a win-win approach for me, because now I finally have a good number of people in the audience that I'm speaking with. Now, I'm going to make our club, I've made it already available to participate for those from other Arizona clubs that are closing. Recently, I learned that the Sunland Springs Village Technology Group, that they're in Mesa, they were closing for some of the same reasons all the clubs are having problems. Too few members doing too much work. So I communicated with Jerry Rogan, he's the president of the club. And I said, look, if you have individuals that still want to be involved with APCUG to take advantage of something like this, the Saturday safaris, that they can become an attendee at my club. I'll consider them part of our club. No dues will be required, but I will insist on regular attendance. They miss a meeting here and there, fine, but you can't just say, yeah, I want to be part of the club and not show up. You got to attend our monthly meetings. So, the times they are changing. Now when Bob Dylan wrote that song, he certainly was not considering APCUG, but we all know as time goes on, changes sometimes are necessary. We're going to continue APCUG to operate as long as we have member clubs, but I'm suggesting that if 2 computer clubs in the same community or even the same state are having difficulty continuing to operate, maybe they can consider combining. Zoom allows us to do that these days. So just something I wanted you to consider. And again, I thank everybody for being members of APCUG. Thank you, Judy.
Thank you much, Ray. Next, we'll have Huey, and then John Kennedy, and then John from Brookdale. John will be talking about beginners and advanced SIGs, Linux SIGs that you might want to start. You're on, Huey.
My hand was up from the last time, sorry.
Oh, okay. John Kennedy, it's your turn to talk about a beginner's Linux SIG. And don't forget, raise your hand so you go to the top of the queue. Oh, come on, give me a break, you turkey. Use the raise hand function so you go to the top of the queue and everybody could kind of look in the same place when you're giving your report.
Or to make it easy, if you just put it on speaker's view, it's right there in front of your face. Hopefully John will be joining me after this. He had some trouble getting his link, and of course I don't look at my phone except for when it's the geeks when we're working on here. Before I mention my group, and I'll be back later for a second one, I'd like to mention that these SIG groups can be real beneficial to your membership, because I know of people in my club who don't ever come to the general meetings, but they attend SIGs, because the SIG is really key to what they're really interested in. And so they'll attend that, but they won't come to the general meetings. I don't know why, but they don't. One of the things that we've done, or I've done, is I've kind of changed the name from our SIGs that we've had, because SIG stands for Special Interest Group. And we had a lot of people comment that, well, I don't know enough to be in the SIG. So I changed it around, and we now have what we call help desks. It's a SIG, but it gets out the idea that we're here to help you. One of the groups that we've had that's probably somewhat of our strongest group, because of a couple of us who have kept it going, is our Linux group. And we're all into the Linux operating system. But I would say that our group is more or less for the first half of somebody's Linux life, the beginner to the average user. We are doing things for beyond, but a lot of times we end up kind of taking a step back because a new person comes in. We have somebody who's got a computer that's still running, it's old, but it can't run the new Windows, and they hate to buy a new computer. And so we introduce them to Linux, and we get it installed on their computer and get them comfortable with it. Then we start kind of move on. Then all of a sudden somebody else comes in and joins the group. We backtrack, and you know, we go back that way. So we've got a lot of new members in our group. I send out about 20 different emails. Not everybody is still attending. The COVID kind of stopped it when we had to go online. It's not as comfortable in helping install Linux on a online, but you know, we've still met during that. We also use Jitsi instead of Zoom, because Jitsi is an open source meeting group, just like Zoom. And being Linux people, we're into the open source. So that might have caused a problem, because now somebody has to know how to do Zoom and they have to know how to do Jitsi, but they're basically the same things that go on. So, you know, we meet twice a month now, and what my goal probably is going to be is that we're going to separate the two meetings, and one become more of a meeting for you know, the beginner level, and then have a meeting for people who really want to go beyond, and that means go into command line and learning to use the terminal and go that way. Very similar to what we're doing in our third Wednesday workshops, that Learning Linux, is that we're going to have a section. Hang on a second here. Good, John's here. And share with that. So we do a lot of that kind of beginner stuff, and we do some intermediate stuff. We talk about news, and we've got a good following that gets together. We have laptops for people who can come to our meetings that have never used Linux, that can try out Linux. A number of the members of the group have assigned laptops for them. So you know, we have a pretty good time, and it's growing. So
Thank you so much. And you'd be surprised how many groups have Linux SIGs. Gonna tell you. Over to George Bowden from the Victoria Group in Canada.
Yeah, John's here too.
Okay, George, let's let John finish with the Linux, okay, and then you're going to be on. He's not on my screen. Okay.
Yeah.
John from Brookdale. You got here just in time. John Kennedy just started gave his presentation about the beginning Linux, and you're on for the advanced Linux special interest group.
Well, actually, it is pretty much advanced because that's most of the people who come. And I checked the questions that you asked. Our Linux, we call it a workshop, was begun in 2004.
Whoa.
And has been going ever since. And we actually just got 2 new members. I can mention this year, our club decided to declare a dues moratorium. And I just posted it. And a couple of the workshop leaders must have spread the word. I haven't even gotten it out on Meetup yet. But with the dues moratorium, I got a new member from Brooklyn and another new member from who had been a prior member from 20 years ago. And he just came back in. Our Linux SIG usually gets anywhere from 8 to 12 people. And the agenda is typically, there were 2 workshop leaders. One of them has retired from being a leader just recently, but one of them goes through a new distro from DistroWatch, something to see so that everybody can take a look at how it behaves in terms of installation, what features it has. So we always have a basic idea there so someone can get used to seeing things. But then we also often have a kind of technical presentation. We actually went through, one of our members is very advanced, uses Linux all the time. And he gave a complete description of setting up disks and partitioning and things like that. And using command line, things like that. And so we went through a review of System D. So there were a lot of, now what I'm saying may be gibberish to most of the participants who don't even use Linux, but it's a very active meeting with people who have been using Linux for decades, as well as some people who have come in and were just getting started with a job that they needed to set up a home environment for. And we helped them through getting a whole NAS set up, disks and things like that. So it's a very active meeting. People are always contributing and with ideas about how to do things at the command line just to get the new installation up on a virtual box or other thing like that. It's one of the most fun meetings that we have because it's so highly interactive. And what we have to do is make sure that we give an opportunity for new members to ask questions. I myself am a command line guy, and so I have to learn from the other members about the new GUI-based Linux distributions. So it attracts members to our club to have that. It attracts members who are interested in active participation and are friendly. So it's, we have people, John Kennedy has joined. We have members from Ohio, North Carolina. We've had people attend from Oregon, Brooklyn, upstate New York, Pennsylvania, and we're in New Jersey on the shore. So the Linux Club has, and that's because we've been using Zoom. Before, it used to just meet as a small group, smaller group. But as I say, it's been active and going on for almost 20 years now. Is there anything else that you'd like me to mention about it?
No, that's outstanding. You know, that's been going along on longer than some clubs have been meeting. Thank you.
And I'd throw in that one of the reasons that I'm a member of the group now is because I wanted to get something beyond what I know. And so I feel like a lot of the people that come to my SIG groups who feel like they're the, newbie. I feel like I'm kind of a newbie with these guys because of all of the experience they've had. And so I want some of their experience. So it's kind of good to be able to have different levels of SIG groups around. And I appreciate being a member of that group. And I'm amazed at what I'm learning from them. So I don't know enough about Linux, even though people think I do since I host the Linux workshop, but that's great. So yeah, if you're really into Linux and you're beyond a little bit of a beginner, come here and feel like you're a beginner again.
Thanks to both of you guys, and from another John.
Yeah, I'm interested in tapping into the Linux SIGs. How do I go about getting the information? Or do I have to be a member of the?
Okay, somebody asked that. I said I would get back to them. You could go to the APCUG's website and look for under member benefits groups hosting other members or something like that. And that gives the list by time zone of groups who say, come on down and visit us at our meetings. The more, the merrier.
And that's including the SIG meetings as well, I'm assuming,
Yeah, well,
right?
that will give you their information.
Okay, very good.
They're the Brookdale group in New Jersey. You can also just Google them. John, would you give them your website address so they can just go directly to your website?
Yes, we're at bcug.com. And on bcug.com, that's our public face. There is a drop-down menu with schedule, and the schedule is there. We're also on Meetup, and the Linux group does regularly announce its meetings on Meetup, and usually includes a link to the Zoom meeting. But if you don't have a link to the Zoom meeting on our website, you can look up who is the workshop leader and email him, and he will gladly send you a link to the Zoom meeting. It's free, open to the public. You don't have to be a member of the club to join the Linux workshops. This year, if you happen to want to become a member of the club, what that would get you is you would join a subgroup of our groups.io, and you would then get an announcement with the link every month without having to do anything. But you can certainly find us at bcug.com.
Okay, thanks for the info. Appreciate it.
Cool, thank you.
And John Kennedy, yours are open too, right?
Oh yeah, I was sick a couple of weeks, so I didn't get the live stuff set up, but yeah, I'll send you stuff on that.
Okay, great.
And we're
Thank
going
you.
on to surveys.
What about George?
Oh, sorry, George.
And then you have me listed for one more yet.
Oh, shoot, that's right. I was just trying to move along here. George Bowden, Victoria Computer Club, you are on.
Hi. So a bit of background. We're a 40-year-old club, and we moved in with our senior center about 5 years ago to survive. That turned out to be pretty good because they do a lot of the management of stuff for us. We support Windows, Macs. We don't support Linux. We have two major activities and then some SIGs that come along. The one-on-one help on Friday mornings. With COVID, we had to start to be more formal and set up appointments because people had to check in with the front desk, and so we set up an appointment schedule. People get 45 minutes of one-on-one help. We have 4 helpers for that. That's a very healthy part of our club. We're booking 3/4 of the time slots at least. We also have a photo group, which goes out to local parks and to points of interest. And we use Google photo albums to share those. People work on their photographs, they put them up in Google photo albums. And then we go and meet in a hybrid meeting. Some of us come to the library of the senior center, and some of us attend on Zoom, and we review those and give sort of helpful comments. One thing that we started recently was to and in the last couple of months, is to take one of our hours out of our Friday help sessions and do a social gathering, and it's turned out to be very popular. So, you know, don't give up on the social aspects of the club. A lot of people are looking for that aspect of the club. They're not just looking for the technical stuff. They do want the social aspect. And then there's the summer picnic. We use a WordPress site for our website, and we have some simple registration forms for things that have to be registered. We use MailChimp for the newsletters. I'm interested that you guys are sending out newsletters once a week. That's more work than I want to do. And I'm wondering if APCUG might consider, as other umbrella organizations have, providing a way of reducing the individual clubs' unique newsletters, and maybe we can, I'm not suggesting you advertise all of the club stuff, but you give a portal for each group to be able to put their newsletter together quickly. We use Google a lot for our club calendar. We embed the Google calendar, that's the Google account that's owned by the club has a calendar, and we put that on our website. We do some surveys and forms, and like I say, we use Google photo albums. That's where we're at. Our membership is it's holding steady at about 130, something like that. So, are there any questions? That's fine.
Cool. They don't send newsletters. Many of the groups that have e-bulletins that come out weekly also have a monthly newsletter that is all about articles and things like this. The e-bulletins are just to announce the meetings for what's happening that week, no more, no less.
Yeah, well, that's what we're doing, but I'm only doing it once a month, and because I mean, I did stop copying all of the entries from our calendar and reformatting them. I just said, to heck with this. I'm just going to point them to the public calendar that's there, and then we can have all details in there. And if things change, which they often do, you know, they'll see the updates. I always say, check your calendar before you leave your house.
And I did forget to mention when I said communicate in the Westchester group, they have a Friday night social event via Zoom where they all get together and do whatever it is you do at a social event and talk among themselves. And that works really well for them because they're not ready to go out into the even hybrid world yet. Many groups are finding that their meeting locations no longer exist. And somebody that has 10 SIGs in a general meeting is going to be doubly troubled about finding someplace. John Kennedy, you are on.
Okay, well, just to share, one of our oldest SIGs from our club that is almost a membership grabber is that before my time, they used to haul in people, bring in all parts of, you know, computer parts and computers in, and they held a repair SIG or help desk now that I call it. And members would be able to bring in their computers or hardware devices, and a team of guys would work on them and upgrade them and replace things and all sorts of stuff. When we got our own location, it made it better because we had a pretty big room with all that stuff set up, and we had like 4 different stations, so we could work on 4 computers at a time. Members could bring their computers whenever they needed to for help. Some were quite regular. We almost wondered, what do they do? But we would let non-members come in, and we would sort of have a deal where we weren't going to try to charge like the big repair shops and stuff, but we kind of sort of had a little bit of an idea that if we had to repair and replace parts and stuff, it would cost them about, you know, like $25 to help fray the cost of parts. But we had also let them know that for $24, they could be a member of the club for a whole year and come as many times as they wanted to have work done. So we got a lot of new members and current members that I've never seen at a meeting on our roster that must be just members to be able to have access to the repair SIG. So that became a double good SIG for us, repairing for people and helping with reducing expenses for repair things, making sure computers can be used. And that was great. And I do want to mention that we do not have it working again, because this would have been a pre-COVID, but one very popular SIG that we had that met after our general meeting was our PIG SIG. And a group of members would always go out together after our meetings and socialize and eat. So we had a PIG SIG.
Yes, absolutely. The Idaho group, when they were among us, they had a PIG SIG after every single meeting, their general meeting, and they had lots of SIGs. They went out afterwards. It was someplace across the freeway from where they met. The Los Angeles Computer Society, one of their members has his own, computer repair shop, and he will fix anybody's computer for the price of a membership in the Computer Society, and that gets them to become a member. And they have a lot of those people who eventually creep in when they see the kinds of presentations that are being offered. But that's their grab, is for that. George, and then we're off to surveys.
So a couple of points. Our one-on-one help is limited to 45 minutes. And that's good, because then we don't get into rebuilding windows for them, right? That we leave to the commercial shops. Well, I think that's about what I wanted to add there. There was something else, but I've forgotten.
Cool. Raise your hand if you remember. Okay, here we go. Okay, the Greater Kansas City Seniors Group, that's Bob Bowser's group, they have a general meeting evaluation of the meeting and the speaker. And whenever I give a presentation to their group, they do the survey and I get the results. And it's really interesting, because if they say you talk too fast, or you mumble, or you talk too slow, or it was the greatest thing that came down the pike, it helps us grow and can also make us feel absolutely wonderful. And it is merely a Google form, which is the easiest thing to put together. If I can do it, anybody can do it, because I need to be able to do things natively without any instruction. And this works beautifully. And I have gotten many emails about, we want to do a survey for our group and we have no clue how to do it. What is everybody else doing? So that's this is the segment for them. So SEMCO, Southeastern Michigan Computer Organization, they do the same thing. And again, super simple. Google form. Next meeting in February, they change the date, they put in a different topic after they have copied it, and boom, it's ready to go. You create it once and then you just keep copying it and moving it along. And these are all of their questions. And I love, what other topics would you like to see covered in future meetings? And hey, they come up with something. Who do you know that can do this? Good follow-up question, because oftentimes I will get those kinds of things for Wednesday workshops. And then I have to find out if there's somebody out there in the world who does that type of presentation. But this is kind of pushing back and saying, hey, can you help us and give us, some clues? Sarasota decided they have monthly presentations and they want to satisfy the needs, desires, and curiosities of their members. So please check the boxes of all of the presentations that you would be interested in. And doing something like this is so much better than standing in front of the meeting and saying, okay, what are you guys interested in for next month? What are you guys interested in for, you know, whatever? And everybody takes that lock and the key and throws it away, and you never get anything. Short and sweet and to the point. And with this one, they had 4 days to answer. Hey, this is pedal to the metal here. They were at the library and their times were changing for them. And so when do you want to meet? What's best for you? Do you want a live meeting or a Zoom meeting? And I will go to groups and people, they will say, well, you know, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And I say, have you asked your members what they want to do? And the board has decided that this is what they're going to do. But no, it's not the board, it's everybody that attends your group. What a better way to reach every single person is a survey. And they want to know if you're even going to be there. I'd attend a live meeting. I'll not be attending presentation meetings, but we'll watch the recordings on YouTube. I mean, this has a lot of information that is extremely valuable to STUG to make sure they are meeting the needs of all of their members. And as I told you before, Westchester PC Users Group last January decided to reinvent themselves. And they had this long survey. They got 57 people, I believe, that answered it. And the results come in bar charts, and they even have a pie chart. But that was one, their very first one out of the gate was, you know, Microsoft. And then there was the check boxes of, you know, are you Windows beginner? What are you interested in? Where are you? And then there were comments under each category. And this is quite a comprehensive result of their survey. And they even had a pie chart at the end, but they had 24 different, totally different present topic questions. And they were asked, are you interested in the topic? Do you have expertise? And of course, the interested bar was high. Do you have expertise? A little bit. And each one that was asked did have part of that. There was a tiny little minuscule part of somebody somewhere had expertise. And the top ones in alphabetical order, I just, you know, glanced at the bar charts and this is what I figured. And it goes from backups down to searching the web. And I looked at all of that and I thought, gee, we have Speakers Bureau presentations on all of those. And lo and behold, they came up with 24 new meeting ideas. Somebody wants to learn how to hack. They're interested in online betting. And I'm going to change the topic of the subject of my troubleshooting 101 presentation to what the heck do I do when my computer acts up? I just loved that. And then there were 8 comments. People took time, 8 of them, to comment about the survey. Hey, we should do this every year. This is the best one we've ever done. And it was very easy to complete. George's group, this is their tutorial help quiz. I call it the help desk. If you've got somebody coming in that needs help with something, why wait until they walk in the door before you find out about it? So here's a very short and sweet and to the point, you know, little quiz here. Again, Google Forms, easy to do. And you're up and running when they walk in the door. You've got all your ducks in the row. You know what you're going to, you know, what you need to know in order to help them solve their problem. And it's easy. All you need is a Gmail account, Drive. This is what it looks like. You've got your untitled form, and then you go from there and you click on the little circle with the plus sign and you add another field, and you can choose multiple choice, check boxes, radio buttons, short paragraphs for names, large paragraphs if they have to fill in the information. And then you set up it so it links to a spreadsheet. And this is exactly how registration is for all of these events. And it comes out as a spreadsheet. And when I'm ready to copy all the email addresses, super simple to do. And I just create a new spreadsheet and it links it to it and off I go. And I always test it out by clicking on send, and I send it to myself, I send it to John, I send it to Bill and say, does everything look okay? And then you guys get the registration form. And these settings, you go into presentation, and that's where you put in your confirmation message that says you are registered for this event. And in my case, it says you will receive the encrypted link after registration closes on the Tuesday before the Wednesday workshop, and I close it at 6:00 p.m. Pacific time. And there's 3 good resources if you think, oh, Lord, I can't put one of these together. Step-by-step instructions, completely done. And I put this together just for grins last night. Bill was having a genealogy class, and what I did first did is it was just a plain ordinary form. And last night I thought, oh, how much more effective it would have been to put the form information into a Google form and send it out and have people check the boxes, have all the information come back in the spreadsheet form. And of course, the cover email that sends the link to the form out, and you can shorten it. So it's not this great big long link, and the copy and paste it. And then that's what you guys get in my registration email. You don't get the really long link, you get the Google shortened link. And I thought, this would have been much more effective than the other one. And it took maybe 15 minutes for me to put this together. And there's the acknowledgement. And that's what it says, your response. And this is what the spreadsheet looks like. And when I get my own response back, and either John's or Bill's, I can look and see, oh, I really need to move that field around, and you can drag and drop the fields up and down and put them in the order you want to. If you don't want to send the same order out all the time, they will randomly move it for you. But I could look at this, and if this were mine, and say, okay, I have all the information that I personally need grouped together, so this is good for me. Like I said, super simple to do. And that is done with my part. I just whipped right on through with the PowerPoint. The next thing we can talk about is hybrid meetings. Any questions you have, and I do have some questions that you guys, maybe there's somebody there that can answer these questions, and it would be questions that are pertinent to everybody. Huey, you're on.
Just a couple of things about the Sarasota survey that we did. 370 people were sent emails. Then we sent reminders. We put it on our Facebook page. We put it in our newsletter. We put it in the weekly things that we send out. In other words, we try to remind them, please fill out the form, the survey. Out of 370, we had 152 respond, which is 41%, which is amazing.
Yes.
And of the 152 respondents, 76 left some kind of a comment, and 97 left the name and emails in the form. So I thought it was a fantastic response. And you really got to make sure you send it individually. Don't make it part of something else, so their attention is centered on it.
And you might want to give an incentive. If you return this, we will have a random drawing for 3 Amazon gift cards or whatever, something like this. Getting something for doing something. User groupies love things like that, just like they don't like to pay anything higher than $19.99 for anything.
One thing we've done in our meetings, that we do a drawing, so not to have to spend money out of the treasury, we have a renewal as the drawing prize. So it's only for members, because you can't renew if you're not a member. And it doesn't cost us anything except that additional income.
And they get to add that year on after their membership date and
Expiration date. Yep.
they keep saying you have to be here. So, oh my gosh, if they and every once in a while they draw and we'll say, oh, he was just here and now he's gone. So he doesn't get anything. Other groups are drawing for Amazon, $10, $15, $20 gift cards, Walmart, take your choice, Kroger. So groups that say they can't give door prizes, that's not a true statement, because you can give a gift card, because other than food at meetings, a lot of people loved the giveaways, whether they had to pay for raffle tickets or it was a freebie drawing out of a hat type thing. So you can, again, entice members to come in for the chance of winning something. Gabe Goldberg.
Hi, yeah, I just wanted to comment that surveys are fun. Coincidentally, maybe 2 weeks ago, I installed some home automation, and then I was curious what kind of home automation other people were doing, and I probably spent 15 minutes or half an hour putting together something on SurveyMonkey. I'm impressed with what you presented here, and I might have more flexibility using the Google facility, but SurveyMonkey was really stunningly easy to prepare a survey. And I got, I think, 10 or 15 answers from a very small group that I surveyed. And now I'm going to go through the answers and see what I learned. But I just wanted to reinforce what you said about doing surveys, because it's fun to ask questions and it's even more fun to get the answers.
And it beats standing in front of the group and a bunch of eyes look back at you and you go, oh Lord, why did I ask that question again about what do they want to learn at the next meeting? And that's universal. Okay, over to George.
Yeah. A couple of things about the surveys. If you manage your membership and you have like over 100 members in a spreadsheet, using a Google form as an interface to that is pretty good. I haven't looked at the security issues of it, but we use Google Forms for that. The other point I want to make is if you do a survey about what people are interested in, have a plan for taking that feedback and actually building some activities yourself. You know, like it's not just here's the survey, here's the results, and you do need to show that back to your audience, but you do need to have a plan for what you're going to do with that information. Because too often we've sent out surveys, we've got the information back, and then we've ignored it except to say, well, I guess people wouldn't want a topic on that aspect or something like that.
And here, Westchester, the now is Tech Ed Connect, they put a whole document together with all of their feedback and information, and that darn document's like 57 pages long or something like that. But hey, it's invaluable information. It was invaluable information for me. Somebody has asked, how do you form a SIG? How do you go about putting one together? So who wants, John, do you want to answer that? I know you have your hand up for something else.
I just think you have to know, in our club, a SIG can be formed by 3 or more people. And the group can make their own decisions, pick their own leader, and meet their own schedule. So you just have to kind of communicate that there are some people who have an interest in this and want to make a group, and put them all together and go for it. Now, the other thing I had my hand raised up is yes, we're all in favor of the technology, Google Forms, yes, but I do have to speak from the other side of the fence that you can't leave out the people who are just members of your group that are techno-nothings. I have people in our group that don't read our newsletter because they can't figure out how to open an attachment, or they have an attachment and they don't know how to read a PDF, although it's just supposed to be able to click on it. So, you know, you might miss a few people with some good ideas. So you might want to have a copy, printed copy of those forms if you have a meeting location or at the next, hybrid meeting, so that those people who can't get on to figure out how to do a Google form and fill out a Google form can at least fill out a paper one too.
Mhm. And you need to find some place that's going to be held. In this day and age, if you pay rent for your room, and you certainly can't have your SIG there and have to pay. But remember, IHOP, Denny's, restaurants, they often have private rooms where people, as long as they will buy something to eat, you can meet there free of charge. And they have Wi-Fi and stuff like that. I gave a presentation standing in the aisle of a Denny's, just off the kitchen one time. Orange County, took me almost an hour and a half to get there. And it was very interesting because I just stood in the aisle. The projector was in the aisle in front of me, and the booths were on either side. And we ate. I gave my presentation. We all went home after Q&A, and it was one of the most interesting experiences I ever had giving a presentation. But you have some logistics things. Do you want to do it online or whatever? But if you form a new SIG, let me know. It would be interesting to see if what we're talking about here does any good. I have another question off topic, and it was, we stopped publishing our newsletter. Our newsletter's still something viable and plus for user groups. Very few clubs have newsletters anymore. They always use Publisher, and oh my, we can't get anybody who wants to learn Publisher. And I say, why in the world would you want to learn how to use Publisher? My newsletter was in WordPerfect, then it went to Word. When you save it as a PDF, nobody knows what you put it together in, and everybody knows a word processing program. And you set it up, you have your boilerplate that is always the same, the officer names and stuff like that. And you use articles that you get from Push or the organizations like How to Geek or Make Use Of. Copy and paste and put that information in there with attribution, and off you go. Gone are the days of 10-page newsletters because people pay more for postage, or the majority of APCUG's existing newsletters are online, either a click through or they actually send you as a member the PDF. So do you guys find newsletters are a draw for your group? Do your members miss having one, or they just don't care? Stephanie.
The Los Angeles, I'm sorry, I didn't turn my
You're good to go.
camera so that it actually reaches me. Anyway, the Los Angeles Computer Society has had a very good newsletter for decades, and we are still doing it. We have our president happens to be our editor, which is unfortunate. But anyway, I mean, she's a great editor, but she shouldn't have to do so much work. But it has kept our membership going. And we have now a member who's been a member for 25 or 30 years. He never went to a meeting because he was a doctor, and he probably had early things to do the next day. And now that he's retired, he's an active member and such. And we have very long attendees of memberships, partly for people who only want our newsletter.
Mm-hmm.
And it runs 20 pages.
Yeah.
And has for a number of years. And I was a former editor of it. So, yeah.
As was Charlotte.
Is it a mail out one?
It is a combination. We give people a $10 deduction in their dues if they take the electronic copy. And the electronic copy has the advantage of the links work. But anybody can see the electronic copy on our website. So it's not hidden. It's not limited to members, but members are good enough to pay their dues and they get other benefits. So, yeah.
I like the way you said that, Stephanie. I love it, in fact, because I was going to say many groups charge more if they want the newsletter mailed to them. And I love it. If you want the electronic version, we'll lower your membership by $10. That is such a cool way, a positive way to phrase it instead of the other negative way. That is way cool.
And that's about what our cost difference is. So we break even that way.
Yeah, very good. And it is an award-winning newsletter, and it has been through many editors. Conrad, you're on.
Our newsletter used to be, paper copy when we were meeting. Right now it's primarily electronic, and it's sent out probably monthly, and it's exceptional. Our editor, publisher does a really fine job. And I'm kind of guilty, like some people, when I first joined the group, kind of read it, and then you, after a while, I actually read it when it comes out now for the last couple of years. And he puts in some excellent information. He draws from different sources, and Don's still working, and even with that, he's been a long-term member of the group, and he really contributes quite a bit.
Good,
So just a comment on that. And he pulls in a lot of good information. And I don't know how many other people in our group read it. I don't really know, but I certainly do. And he will pull in from relevant different sources, and also in there he'll put in. It comes out about the first week of the month. Our meetings are on the third Thursday. So he'll list on the first page what the topic is of the meeting, and just a reminder for people. And then, we put in towards the end of the newsletter, we do have SIG meetings. John Fair, who's here, does smartphones, handheld devices. He will submit a report that's put in the SIG leader. In the newsletter. In our genealogy SIG, we have a secretary that contributes there, and then when we have the monthly general membership meetings via Zoom, we put in the minutes of the meeting.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And the one thing you shouldn't do is put your treasurer's report in your newsletter if you have one that you publish online. We have had some groups receive a message from a Canadian law firm and say, oh my, you have a copyrighted graphic on your website, and we want X amount of $100 in order to make good. And you want to make sure that nobody can see how many gazillions of dollars you have in your account if you happen to be one of those groups that does, because then they are going to ask you for more money. And be aware of that. And Fred, over to you.
Yeah, hi. I'm with the Brookdale Computer Users Group here in New Jersey. Our newsletter editor has just retired recently. He had been doing the newsletter for 15, 20 years.
Outstandingly.
Yeah, and they had some awards. They had a technical column that also won an award. I've taken over sort of the responsibility as publicity chairman and historian to send out a monthly bulletin. And basically what it's going to be doing is to summarize the monthly workshops for those members who can't attend or don't know about what's going on at other workshops. In particular, my point is that, one might not be interested in Linux or cannot attend the Linux workshop, but because Linux is open source, there may be some ideas in the Windows world, in the Mac world, that they can glean from the Linux workshop. So the problem, however, is getting other workshop leaders to contribute. Now, I just started, so it's early on in this venture, but it's always a manpower issue. Who's going to do the job? How much time does it take? But I think it's a worthwhile idea to continue some feedback to the members on a monthly basis, even though we don't have a formal newsletter anymore. And the other issue is you're talking about surveys and MailChimp and Monkey Survey. Those tools give you feedback as to who opens your email and what links they click on to show what interests they have. Otherwise, when you send these things out, unless you get a reply, a comment, a live reaction, you have no idea, and it leaves you in a vacuum. But again, that takes some time to construct. It takes some manpower. So the ideas may be great, the newsletters may be great, but getting the involvement of other people and the reaction in terms of analytics by way of the Monkey Survey or MailChimp, I think are even more valuable. So that's my contribution for today.
Cool, thank you. And at the Conrad's and John Fair's group, when they are having their meeting, they do ask for go around the room, so to speak, or go around the screen. And the SIG people get to talk a little bit about what they talked about last month and what they're doing, what's coming up. Again, they're giving their members publicity about, hey, come on down. They might not read whatever it is they sent out, but now they're hearing it. And a lot of people, that's how they learn. They listen. They don't learn from reading anything. They need this right here. Murray, you're on.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. I'm with CENTCOM, which is Senior Computer Users Group in Overland Park, Kansas. When I first joined CENTCOM, we used the meeting facilities at the junior college, and we had fairly large audiences that attended meetings. And at that time, there were handouts given to the attendees as they left the meeting. My predecessor produced this whole pile of meetings that are recorded back to the early 2000s that he handed out, stood at the door, handed them out as people entered the meeting and picked them up as they departed. And at that time, he was successful in getting about 50% to 70% of responses. Some years later, when he retired and I took over his job, which was still about 12 years ago, I still continued his practice, and I would print up sheets and hand them out at the general meetings. And overall, I would say during that period, I would get 40 to 50% responses. Then we had COVID, and we had online meetings. And for the online meetings, we used, or I used, a Google form, some of the same style that that Judy was showing in her presentation.
but when I got back returns, initially the response was somewhere between 20 and 30%. And I would then go to the board meetings that we attended at the first of every month, and I would present a summary of what the feedback was. And before we had Google Forms, well, let me see if I can get a better image of this. Well, I'm afraid I'm not familiar enough with the system.
Okay.
To
I show
blur the
the
background.
copy of your.
Background and effects. Forget the blur. Okay, this is the form that I would use to return the survey to the board. I would list all of the responses that were comments and also the statistics. There were comments that would come back that would go to classroom instructors if there were things that might help in the way classes were taught. But the most recent response was to a new program director that just volunteered. I was able to take those old response sheets and all of the prior speakers that we've had at those meetings were compiled in a list by our president and given to the new speaker, to the new program chairman. So he's in a position to get prior speakers and new speakers and continue while we're on this hybrid meeting program. And now that we're returning to general meetings since the COVID masking process has stopped and people are willing to go out, we use this at our monthly lunch and learns. And at our lunch and learns, we get something like 52% from handouts. And for the hybrid meetings, we only get something like 5% from online attendees. So the disparity is very great between the online responses and the in-person. So I'm not sure how we're going to go, but we're really still studying it. And I appreciate seeing the other programs that Judy has just demonstrated. And I look forward to copying some of their questions.
That's what we're here for, to share. And I find that interesting because we are a technology group, and what does it cost you to reply to it and, you know, click on the boxes, and takes you probably less than 5 minutes. At the Southwest Tech Conference in San Diego, we ran for 23 years, and the majority of those years, as you walked in for the last lunch on Sunday, there was a survey sitting in your chair, and we had our volunteers at the door. You did not get out the door to leave unless you put your survey completed in their hot little hand. They were invaluable for planning next year's conference on presenters and blah, 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 blah. Couldn't have done it without those. Those were invaluable. Quick note, the Durham group wants everybody to know that they are having their meeting this coming Thursday, which would, for me, would be next Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern, by a hearing aid company. And they had a unique presentation by a local robotics club that it was absolutely outstanding. And the first question asked was, are there any girls in the club? The girls ran the entire presentation, demonstrated the robots, CNC machines, you name it, we ruled. And I say, if you have a robotics club at one of your local high schools, you must ask if they will do a presentation for you. My grandson was, oldest one was the president of our robotics, his high school for 4 years. And he came to my group and gave a presentation on 3D printing on how they, made the parts for their robots. So if just that. A question. Does anybody have anything to say about hybrid meetings? Question number 2, would you be interested in a workshop about Groups.io, how to set it up? We've talked about this before, and somebody said it was the pits to do it. And Huey sent me the instructions on what he put together for the Sarasota group and said it's easy peasy to do. Versus the Google groups. Would that be of interest to anybody? If it is, just put a yes in the chat box and let us know, and we'll try to find somebody who will do that. That's, again, I'm on many of those lists for other groups, and you get to find out what is going on for me in other groups, but it's an instant way of finding out what is happening in your own group or asking questions. Oh, Bob is there. Hello, Bob.
Whoop. Hello. We have all been using Zoom and some of the others for quite some time. And I had an occasion, where is it? I had a club that didn't use Zoom and refused to use Zoom, but what they used was something called free conference call. And to my amazement, I mean, I'm never afraid to try something new. And to my amazement, I tried their method, free conference call. We had tried it once before, but there were some problems that you couldn't show videos. Well, that's all been solved. And I was amazed at how well free conference call worked. And for those clubs that don't have money, who needs it? It's free. It has no restrictions. You can have lots of people on, and you don't have a restriction on how long your meeting goes. So if you don't have the money and you can't get a free license for Zoom, give free conference a try. I was surprised when I was forced to use it because the club, that's all they used.
And that group is CenCon, Bob Bowser's group, Murray's group, who just spoke, and I've given many presentations to them. And to this day, no matter how many I have given, Bob Bowser always emails me and says, okay, when do you want to do our training session? And we do one every single time before the meeting to refresh me, because that's the only time I use it, except I used to use that back in the day, just the conference call program, because it was free. Before this online meeting ever was thought of. Jerry Crow.
You asked about hybrid versus Zoom. I am the chair of the Phoenix chapter of the IEEE Computer Society. And we have been meeting Zoom for about 2 years, and now we found a live site. The guy that let us use the site at a local college, he wants to go live. and only. But we have found that we lose attendees if we don't go Zoom. People have become accustomed to sitting home in their kickback clothes and leaning back in their desk chairs and attending a meeting. So what we're probably going to do, we haven't decided yet, but we're probably going to go back to Zoom only. Simply because we believe that we will get more attendees at our meetings, not to mention the fact that the attendees can be all over the country or all over the world. Plus, when we're on Zoom, we've had presenters from Israel. We had a guy from New York. I mean, we get presenters from all over the world and country too, because we're on the Zoom. So that is my thoughts on the Zoom versus on hybrid meetings. So,
And we have many groups who have very successful hybrid meetings. The main drawback still with many of the groups is the sound. They can't quite, that isn't quite right. And my mantra is, and people, again, they don't read my emails, they don't pay attention, they're just like a bunch of kids. Have someone restate the question, and then you don't have to worry about, gee, we didn't hear that person in the back row because it was mumbled. But even if he had a microphone, it still wouldn't work. And as presenters, we're taught, which I never do, is to restate the question to make sure everybody understands it and has heard it verbalized. But we have groups that are still struggling with hybrid meetings, and others that it just works beautifully from the very first one they do. And it is unique on how everybody pulls their hybrid meetings together. John Kraut.
Hi.
And again, these groups don't have money to go out and buy highfalutin systems. They buy their stuff at Amazon and get it at the least expensive price that they possibly can, as opposed to Pat Aces and Ollie. if that's what you're going to talk about. We don't.
No. Separate subject. I did speak for the group fairly recently that uses free conference call, but along the way we found this little horribly confusing circumstance. There are two online services, one named free conference call and the other named, get this, free conference. And it turned out I was steered to the wrong one for a couple of weeks. I installed it. I had problems with it. I even called their help desk before I found out I was using the wrong one. So what I'm telling you is that I found free conference call, including its screen share feature, quite easy to use, comparable to Zoom. It probably does not have all the security features of Zoom and the other things that we have come to rely on in Zoom. Nonetheless, it's free. So just stay away from free conference if you're looking for it on the web. It's called free conference call. Done.
I believe they are in Long Beach, south of me, if I recall correctly. And I've been using it with CENTCOM for many years, and it has really grown up. Back in the day, you know, it was bare bones, but it worked just fine. But it has come along. Jolynn.
Okay, well, I can't unmute my video, but that's okay. I just wanted to mention, I have found that the value of Zoom for us has been I've been able to record and then publish unlisted on YouTube all of our Zoom presentations. I find I used to, when we did in person, I used to record the screen and my audio so that I could present it that way. So far, I haven't figured out how to do it properly in a hybrid meeting. So it's something that we at the Hilton Head Club are still try to work on, because very often when a presenter comes in, they want to do it live or they want to do it Zoom, and we haven't been able to do the crossover much. So I'm looking forward to getting back to that this year. Thank you.
Welcome. And thank you for your feedback. Appreciate it. Murray Strom, you're on.
Hi. Okay. Well, I've got a couple of things. First of all, it's not no longer actually part of Victoria Computer Club, but we do have a Linux group that does hybrid meetings, and we use Jitsi rather than Zoom. It's free, and it works fairly well. Except the problem is the meeting place that we have has a rather shaky internet connection. So it's like this morning's meeting. It must have lost the connection 2 or 3 times during the meeting. But when it's working well. And if we had a better internet connection, we're meeting at luckily it's free space. We don't have any budget or any membership fees. It's strictly free. So therefore we are not buying equipment or doing anything like that. We're just using member equipment. But the other one that I wanted to mention is that I also belong to Victoria Genealogical Society, and I'm not sure what the difference is, but the COVID restrictions and going to Zoom and now to hybrid, their finances have burgeoned, the membership has grown, and the number of attendees at the meetings and presentations has well, they wouldn't have had room to have all the people who attend now. And of course, we do get members now to the society from around the world, including, I know there's one guy from Scotland who shows up for our Scottish thing. But I can't figure out what the difference is. I know that with the Victoria Computer Club, we still struggle trying to figure out what how to get more people attending. But that's George has covered that. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, genealogy is a hot topic, Murray, and to people who are interested in that, that's where their focus is. And they love attending meetings and learning new stuff and going to breakout things like conferences and stuff like that. We don't offer that kind of stuff as a tech club. But you should consider using a hotspot when you're having your meeting, and that will take care of any kind of Wi-Fi problems that you do have.
Yeah, the problem is with that is that means we've got to have somebody who has a data plan, and a lot of us don't.
Well, just ask if somebody does. It's a simple question. The Tulsa Computer Society meets in a library. Internet's lousy. I suggested hotspot, and life goes on, and it works wonderfully for them. If you do have money in your treasury and people, you know, have a plan, but it takes them over their plan and they're charged more, give them whatever it is they're out to, you know, cover their phone bill because of the meeting. Super simple. Jerry Crow, you're on again.
Thank you. First of all, I wanted to thank the guy that talked about that OSHA Lifelong Learning Institute. I do not remember who the individual was.
Paul Howard.
But I want to thank him because I looked that up and I found out there's an installation of that entity about 3 miles from where I live. So I'm going to talk to them about, I presume based upon what he said, that they are using some of their meeting facilities for their group. I mean, they offer classes is what I could see when I looked online. And then I wanted to say to the gal from Hilton Head, my brother goes there to a golf tournament every year. So, and he's going to go in about 2 months. I never even heard of the place, except he's a golf freak. But, and secondly, to Murray, what's his name? The guy that lives in Overland Park. I grew up in Prairie Village in Johnson County. Sorry to take this meeting time, but I wanted to tell him my brother still lives about a mile down the road from there, from the college he was talking about. So, and I'm done with my personal stuff. Thank you, Judy. Thank you all for bearing with me.
Jerry's going to have his brother stop by and say hi, okay? John Kraut.
Yeah, a couple of things. Paul Howard spoke about that business with the OSHA Lifelong Learning Institute. That we use their George Mason University space in Fairfax City. It's it's kind of a barter situation where they provide a budget, which quite frankly astounded me, for operating the technical capabilities that are built into the meeting rooms. And our club provides the engineering capability. So we recommend products. We help set them up and configure them, make sure they work together, and teach their technical staff how to use them for other groups that meet in the same room. So that explains that aspect of it. And being a senior myself now, I've had a what we might call a memory fault. I can't remember what else I was going to say. Maybe I'll remember that later. So I'll shut up now.
Okay, OSHER is
Thank
not
you.
at all
Thank you.
universities. It is a foundation by somebody by the name of, I believe, Mr. OSHER.
That's correct.
Who teams with universities that want this. Cal State, Long Beach, that not only has an absolutely fantastic jazz station, 88.1 if you like jazz, and they have OSHER down there. It's interesting. I am 35 miles northwest of Los Angeles. We do not have anything at any of the universities around me. The closest one is Long Beach, like I say. But the university in Orange County had one, and they had a computer club that belonged to APCUG, because the guy that was involved with OSHER knew about APCUG from another computer club that he was a member of. And they were members for years. And I went out there and gave 2 or 3 presentations and had a gay old time. He died, and they didn't know who APCUG was, and they dropped out. But it worked wonderfully. But it was interesting because I had to send them an invoice every year for them to pay their dues. And I had to call it a subscription, because they were not allowed to be members of any other organization through OSHER. And so they wanted to belong. So we just went around that way. Larry Mitchum walks us off just before John takes over. Larry, go for it.
Yes, our group, Central Kentucky Computer Society, has an OLLI affiliate that is in town with the University of Kentucky. We co-op with them in teaching classes. This is a way to increase funds into the society so that we may have a resource center and offer some of the other services that we have. So OLLI members can take a class in some kind of computer related item, and they pay into OLLI, and we offer so many seats in our classes for OLLI members. And it's also a way to recruit new membership. So OLLI is really a good thing. OSHA, before that, it was here at the University of Kentucky. We had Donovan Scholars, and OLLI was a natural progression into OLLI.
Thank you. And another natural progression are adult technology classes. If you have adult ed, I taught it for over 20 years through my high school district, was the sponsor of the adult ed classes. And that's a natural progression. I would say you've gone through my 12 weeks of this, that, and the other thing, or however long it was, the Saturday classes. If you want to keep learning about technology, the local computer club is the place to go, because it's the next step up for the people that have gotten the basics about, their wearables, their devices, their PCs, their laptops, their OSs, whatever it is. And you can only go so far in a class, but we offer the next step up. So if you can find somebody at your local adult ed that you can chat with, and maybe let you have a flyer like I did, inviting them to your meeting. I featured a free admission ticket to something that was already free, so that always brought a nice laugh from everybody. And we got several members back in the day via the adult ed world. Here's a quote from Steve Parker. The more you learn, the more you realize there is to learn. So those that think they already know everything haven't learned anything. Those are for the 55 plus people who say they do not want to attend your computer club. And for the person in the chat box who said, we're all old, how do we get younger people? As far as I know, it's impossible because they are all about phones. They walk around like this bent over, and their backs are going to kill them when they get old, and their necks are going to fall apart. And they just plain old aren't interested. I have 5 grandsons, and they would not be kept dead doing anything like this. Although the oldest one does say he learned everything from his Grammy, and he did because he had a computer at my house from the time he was 6. But I think young people are a lost cause to us. 55 plus are young people. And, we have to have something to offer them out there. John Kennedy, I've had a good time. I hope you guys have learned something new. I always just want one thing, and I'm a happy camper. So hopefully you learned more than one thing. Keep in touch. Send me your ideas. I will share them as I love to share. That's my role in life in APCUG, is to make sure everybody knows what's going on. And if something new comes up, I love to share the information. John Kennedy, would you take us away, please? I'd love to eat breakfast.
Yeah. This has been great. I'd like to thank all of you that took part today, and all of you who are going to receive this information, taking it back to your group with great ideas. I thank Judy for putting this together, and I thank Bill for being my right-hand man, taking care of Zoom activities. We will not be here next Wednesday. Whenever we do a Saturday workshop, the Wednesday is a day off for today. We'll be back on the 15th with our Learning Linux, and then the 22nd with another Wednesday workshop. And we'll be back in 3 months with another Saturday Safari.